Hello, I'm Ochi, and welcome to Speaking of Everything. My guest is not a stranger. He's been here many, many times before, but I got a call. In fact, he responded to an interview I had with Mr. Emilio Calmera, who's also a regular here on the program. And it caused quite a stir on the entire island. In fact, globally, over 15,000 people alone on Facebook responded to it. And it has to do with independence. But let me introduce my guest to you. He's one and only Mr. Jimmy Challenger. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Earl. A pleasure to be back here on the program.
You're wondering how is he going to introduce me, right? It's been a while since you've been here, man. So it's good to have you back at the show. So what's happening? How you? I had that clip from Mr. Calmera. I'll show it in a while, but you saw it. Did you watch the whole show, or you just picked up from the clip that I had, the reel on Facebook?
Well, the first thing is, any program, I would usually look at the entire thing, listen to the entire thing to get the full gist of what is being said, so that you don't misinterpret the information. However, that statement on its own was sufficient to warrant an immediate reaction of, while I understand his point of view and his perspective, I disagree 100% on the statement basically saying, the Dutch should take over. I strongly believe that as any nation, your ultimate goal has to be self-determination in every sense of the word. That does not mean that you have to disregard your history, that you have to disregard your partners, in this case, your partners in the kingdom, or other international partners that you can open doors with. I just disagree wholeheartedly with his statement.
Let me play the clip, and then for people who didn't get to see it, all right? And then we'll continue on it, all right?
You're going to make me say something that I didn't want to say here. Honestly, Mr. Gibbs, I'm going to say it here, and for the record, the best thing to happen to St. Martin is the Dutch take it over. And I'm saying it not because I want it to happen. I don't see another way out, because we don't have the human capacity, right? We have misallocation of human capital, and once you have that, right, we're going to be going over the same, I say that, Russian roulette over and over and over, while the debt is building up, and there's no benefit. I don't have a problem with paying taxes, I have a problem paying taxes. I'm not seeing what I'm getting for it.
Exactly.
That's my problem.
I agree.
You understand?
So there you have it, Mr. Challenger. So you disagree with Holland taking over, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But and I was surprised from the response from people, because are you surprised?
No, I think you have a mixed bag of responses. You have persons that are saying, look, we can't seem to get it right. We can't seem to manage our infrastructure. We can't manage our educational system. We have unemployment. We have youth delinquency and all the other ills and pressures that comes with rapid development. I strongly believe that St. Martin's main challenge has been over the centuries is rapid development that did not allow for timely planning of the directions where we're going, right? And once we put ourselves in that position of saying, listen, where do we want to see St. Martin in the next 10, 20, 30 years? Once you set out that plan collectively and you get a buy-in from your community, right? It's not just a matter of a minister coming in today and saying, I'm going to take road A. The next minister behind him comes in, no, I want to go B, and so on. Once a country makes a conscious decision collectively, meaning you have to have work groups from the various stakeholders, and you make that plan, that trajectory, any government that comes in thereafter, when they are doing their governing program, has to abide by that master plan, if you want to call it, right?
We've had that, Mr. Challenger. There were 2 master plans that were done, and we're still in the same situation.
Sure. Let me put it to you another way then. Since Hurricane Irma, right, and the pandemic, we have had international institutions that have come to support and assist. World Bank is one. Credits is another. You have construction of the fiber network of Telem back some years ago. You have now the construction of the hospital. You have the expansion of Winair. You have Mental Health Foundation that is going through also an expansion and wants to put up a new building, right? All these entities are facing changes to accommodate future development. Now, when you look at the international players that come in, that have won the bids to do the construction or won the bid to put the fiber in the ground, these international entities that are ultimately run by persons who don't necessarily have a full affiliation with the island, who do you think guides them? Who do you think they rely on to be able to know, listen, if you're going to put this fiber down in lowlands, be aware that now you're on the French side and the laws for digging a hole is different from on the Dutch side, or on the Dutch side, please be mindful that there has been no collaborative network sharing between GEBE and Telem in the past, you know, color coding or whatever you have on the pipes. All those things are things that did not occur. Now, it takes our local people. Without our local people, without our personal engagement at every level, those international companies would fail.
Mr. Challenger, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but I got to tell you this. I live in Bel Air, and in Bel Air, we didn't get fiber. Everyone else got fiber. And I was at a meeting, and one of the ministers was bragging, and I said that. Oh, no, it's not so, but it's true. We were one of the last places to get fiber. And certain remarks were made, or give this and that. We're too personal. We are too personal. The same thing happened in 2017 after Hurricane Irma. And at that time, I was on the board of JB as one of the directors, okay? One of the supervisory board directors. But someone in government who didn't get what they wanted said, now, this is a fact. Leave them there last. Normally, Bel Air always had power. But that time, it didn't happen. So you see, we're too personal. And Mr. Calmera was trying to also allude to that. Our problem here is that we govern, and we govern in terms of too personal. So if I don't like you, then it applies to you. But if I like you, you're dumb and you're stupid, you're still going to get it. And that's the problem.
Okay, then let's take it from this angle, right? The Chinese are a knit community of themselves, and they are personal with helping each other to grow. The Indians, knitted community amongst themselves, and they help each other to grow. Yes? The Dutch also come. Yes, we're part of the kingdom. They help each other, they communicate with each other and discuss do's and don'ts and how to get ahead, right? All of that is personal, right? On our end, we are personal, and that's fine, but we are personal with the wrong things and the wrong approach.
How do we correct
that? We have not instilled or made a conscious decision to use our education system to begin to put the information in place. For example, every day we are seeing that the traffic accidents with the motorbikes. Okay, now we can blame it on, let's say, the use of maybe, and a big maybe, use of marijuana maybe, and they get a little excited on the road. We can blame it on probably persons that are too much free hands on too much free time on their hands, and the list goes on. But you still, at the end of the day, Where is that campaign that says, listen, this is how you drive on the road? Where is that campaign going into the schools? Where is that campaign going into the homes and the minds of every individual saying, listen, we have to correct this? Because at the end of the day, you can put 50 laws, right? Where is the buy-in from the public? Okay, we, on a daily basis, we wake up, we go to work, we take our kids to school, we look up to someone. Okay, the first person or being that I look up to is our Creator, the Lord Jesus Christ, right? But outside of that spirituality, you look up to your community leaders. You look up to your government. And if the government and the community leaders don't stand and say, listen, we've had enough of these accidents, we're going to start a community campaign against this. We're going to talk about helmets. We're going to enforce it at every level, meaning you have to get the buy-in from the police. You need to get the buy-in from the places where you purchase your motorbike. You're buying a bike, you're buying the helmet. So it's the mindset.
I want to jump back because I don't want to lose focus here. For people who know me, I've always been in favor of political independence for St. Martin. I voted for independence every time for St. Martin. Although all my other colleagues in the media tried to convince me it wasn't right, I still voted for political independence. And when Mr. Calmira made that statement, and I sent him a text afterwards too, telling him everybody know my position on the topic, okay, that I'm in favor of political independence. But I could understand, and I agree with him, because it's so frustrating. For me, this television program started on the 1st of March, 1984. This is the longest running television program in the history of St. Martin, consecutively running. And I'm disappointed. So I tell people now, I don't watch parliamentary meetings anymore. I don't follow. I'm so disappointed because you see this show and Earl Gives Live, these were the shows that brought St. Martin people together to fight for separate status, at least separate status. And all the people jump on my back. I got a lot of enemies when I said during those programs on before the referendum that Aruba had voted for political independence. Oh no, it didn't. I had all kinds of people I can call. Some of them died by now. Later years gone by, it was revealed, but no one came to my defense at the time. All the intellectuals and the educated ones, leave him there. Let them say what they want. You see, sometimes our own people and those in position allow a lie to live a life of its own. Okay? And I've dedicated my life to this country and the people who let me down the most, the same people. You see, so I still believe in political independence, but I could understand why Calmira feels the way he feels, because he comes to the show a lot, he talks a lot, just like you, okay? So I hope you understand that I'm not taking for him, I'm saying here, because both of you are guys that come on this show, and both you have a point. You see, this makes it so difficult, because I could understand your point of view too, because I hold that more than I hold Calmira's own, but we are in a serious situation, Mr. Challenger. We have people who don't really care about this island, but they're sitting in office.
Yeah. You see, at the end of the day, if you look at other countries, if you look at Barbados has been a prime example. If you take it back to South Africa at the time of Nelson Mandela, had he decided, listen, I'm going to give up, because there were some of his own people that were not necessarily in agreement with him.
Yeah, but he had an organization.
Right. Huh? Yes, correct.
He had an organization.
Correct.
I refused to. Look, they were coming to me to start a group, and I refused to. I didn't want to be a part of no organization, because all of those people who formed those organizations, where are they today? I'm still here. They're gone. Because I knew that it wasn't for the love of St. Martin. So Mandela had the African national movement against him,
The ANC,
Congress against him.
right.
Completely different. I was just an individual out there causing trouble for the establishment.
Hence my first point. If you look at the Chinese, if you look at the Indians, and you look at the Arabs on the island, no matter their circumstance, they bond together for a common cause.
Yeah.
We are failing. That does not mean that the Arabs, the Indians, and the Chinese are not contributing to St. Martin. They are. But can you imagine how much more can be achieved if those that are in government, that are considered, so to say, the more indigenous people of St. Martin, because now we are a serious melting pot, yeah, would stand together in every sense in steering where we're going, because the political aspect of St. Martin is the last straw hold of any kind that we have. Yes, everything else has become quite a mix, right? And this I say with much respect to everyone that has settled here. So many of us have settled here and have made St. Martin our home and continue to make valued contributions. But it has reached to a point where we must take a stand and begin to do that planning, because no matter which way you turn it, the Dutch are already here, right? We are part of the kingdom. You know what it is to have someone come in who has the same qualifications that you have. You've studied in the very same schools in the Hague or other parts of the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Same education. And you're watching or you're reading that person's curriculum vitae, and they are now telling you what to do with, forget about the ties of within the kingdom, but we're in a different part of the world.
Is that?
This is the Caribbean, hot sun, beaches, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
We know best what is best for St. Martin. We understand our weather. We understand our hills and valleys, if you want to call it that, right? But yet you get someone, and it's no matter their ethnic background, because Holland is also a mix of people itself, right? They come and tell you now where you have to lay your road down. You understand? So this is why I disagree with the statement, because ultimately you're going to be the one doing the work and the planning for someone who's coming to give you a directive.
But you know, I had the Prime Minister of St. Martin here last year, Dr. Luc Mercelina. He made a statement that in any other country, if a Prime Minister had made that statement, he would have had to reckon with the people of the country. But you see, he was honest. The statement he made was very factual. But for a politician, you don't say that. And he said it. And I'm not going to say it verbatim, but he will respond to a question I asked him. And he said, well, look at the population of St. Martin. How many of them are St. Martin? The balance of power doesn't lie within our hands anymore to elect people. So his focus is not necessarily the focus of the St. Martiner. His focus for everybody, because that's where he's going to get elected. Now, that's not what he said. I'm just repeating part of what he said. I can always play back for those of you, and even the Prime Minister, if he's not happy with the way I try to explain it. But that's what he basically said.
I look at things, and I agree with him in the sense, if you take it from the angle that as a citizen, you have a contract. The passport that we hold is the highest level of that contract. You have persons who are just on a permanent residency. They don't hold your passport. But there's a contract. The moment I give you permanent residency or you're holding a Dutch passport, you have certain obligations that you have to comply with. You have to file your taxes. You have to abide by the rules of law and order. You have to make sure your children are in school, and so on and so forth. So from that angle, yes.
But the point I'm making is that he's saying that these are the people who vote for me, not some other people. That's what he's saying.
But ultimately, look, once you have a right to vote, whether you are an indigenous St. Martin third generation or whether you've recently received your passport, that contract is there. He has an obligation as a prime minister to each and every citizen, and by extension, every guest that comes here, every visitor that comes here within that 16 square miles or rather.
No, but see, I think don't you're going too far off here, because when he made that statement, okay, I'm not going to call it names here, but some other people in St. Martin who've been very active, not in political independence, but in the whole movement of St. Martin for St. Martin, nation building, etc., they were very unhappy with that statement. But no one said nothing. You see, the statement have to do with St. Martin and St. Martin people losing the power in their so-called country. Because, Mr. Challenger, you look around this island today, and the Prime Minister was writing this statement, I said, but for a politician, it should not have been said. So I want to focus on your answer in terms of our people and those who are not our people, because you live in this island, you're here. Do you know what people say about the Prime Minister privately?
I still stand with the statement I made earlier, right? You being outnumbered as we are, as St. Martiners, right? If you take the Netherlands is also evolving. If you take England, it's also evolving. The world...
They're completely gone.
Right. The world... Look at the United States. Look at Florida. You go to Florida, you swear you're in Mexico, right? Because there's a constant heavy Spanish being spoken. So the international impact that the world has had because of the improvements in communications and travel and so forth, the world has changed. So the last bit that you have to hold on to
is what?
Is your contract that you have. The people that have chosen your passport or whatever entitles you to be a citizen of that nature.
You and I don't have the contract. You and I have a document from the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who is a part of the European Union, that can be taken from you anytime they want.
Well, it can be. It can be because it says it in your passport. But it's the same as employment. You have a contract to be employed. It also states that you can terminate that employment. If I don't want to be a citizen of St. Martin anymore, I can choose and leave and engage with another country.
But for most of us, we can't choose.
Well, some of us we can, but ultimately, as a leader, it is your obligation to lead the citizens that have chosen to remain here, that have chosen to contribute, that have chosen to build their lives, their nest egg, whatever you want to call it. So you have that obligation to protect, guide, and lead those people.
Capacity was mentioned also. And some people blame Emilio Calmero for saying the statement capacity. I said, what kind of BS is this? The politicians for years have been saying that. Emilio didn't come up with that. I could start the call. And the politician that used that word the most more than anyone else was the Prime Minister, Mr. Silvera Jacobs, more than anybody else. So all of a sudden now he's being blamed for making a statement that he didn't come up with. Is a politician, and up to now they're saying capacity all the time. And you're a professor. You went to Holland, you came back and studied. I have my children that went to Holland, came back and studied. They don't want us here. They don't want people like you. I'm here.
The not wanting us here comes from our own.
I know that.
Right?
And who run the government?
And we run the government. And I will say this much, and it's a little bit...
I hope I didn't push it.
No, I'm quite fine with the conversation. No, my last name is Challenger, and one of the things is I stand by that name, right? And I will challenge you at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of it.
That's good.
And I will stick to the truth, stick to what I know. And again, I wholeheartedly believe that St. Martin people can govern themselves. When it comes to capacity, it all depends on your planning. It all depends on what you need, when and how, right? We have people with capacity that unfortunately are in the wrong place. So you have persons that, let's say, have a legal background, couldn't get into a proper law firm, or couldn't, and they go and they work, let's say, in marketing. I'm being a little exaggerative, trying to find an example. But you have people that are misplaced, right? Because the politics gets involved, and this one's daughter or this one's son can't get this because and whatever. Again, brings me back to the Indians, the Chinese, and the Arabs. It doesn't say that they don't have challenges. It doesn't say that when they go to a bank for financing that they're not necessarily turned down. But they stand firm and they stand together, and they move from a cultural perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from an economic perspective, from education. When you look at the Indians, even though they are not, they may be second and third generation on St. Martin, they know the various Indian culture and habits and norms. Why? Because they are educating, one generation is educating the other about their past and their history.
And you know what, Mr. Jandalo, at the same time, if you're black, if you're white, and I'm going to use Caucasian too, it's the same as white, but I'm just exaggerating in a little bit, Indian, Chinese, whatever it is, and you're born in St. Martin, you can't get a good job, even if you qualify. That's why the Indian, Chinese employ people within their own community. Now, the local St. Martiner who might be black or white don't have that privilege, so they have to go out there and look for a job, and that's where they shaft them. I have some nightmares I can share. Some of them I can't because it's so confidential and it's so painful to these young people who went abroad to study, especially in the hospitality sector. It's unbelievable.
Again, as a people, the leadership, coming from the leadership? The leadership that is there. You are, you postulate yourself, or you are appointed, whatever may be. It could be in the private sector on your job. It could be in government, right? Or some social work, or as simple as being on a foundation, Lions Club, or Rotary, right? At the end of the day, your leadership and what you bring to the table is what is going to allow others behind you of the same culture, the same norms and values to move to the next level. We have failed ourselves on remaining focused, on finding that inner fight that we had.
You're blaming the victim there, Mr. Chandra. You're blaming the victim there. I listen to you, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying to myself, this don't sound right. You're blaming the victim.
You have.
The victim is St. Martin people.
The victim is the St. Martin people. The very same victims are the ones that are electing the leadership. So it becomes a vicious circle. And where you are able to make that change is through education. We have to be able to say, listen, this is where we want to go, and for you to be able to know where you're going is through education and information. If you look at our education system, every time that the Dutch changes, whether it's FBE, whether it's electronic learning, whatever it is, right? We automatically then change without factoring in, okay, what of this new program, this new approach, what really applies for us.
So Chandra, I was in Miami at a conference with a number of other people there, and there were people from Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia, New York. Some of them were Caribbean people who were migrated to the U.S. They were attorneys, etc. And someone brought up, I'm not going to call that name, someone brought up my name and my children. This is unbelievable. And I can remember one being a representative for St. Lucia at the United Nations and the other being an attorney in New York. She was from Trinidad. And she turned to the guy and said, who brought up my name, my children situation in St. Martin, which I was shocked. She said, it's not St. Martin alone. She said, it's the Caribbean. It's a black people thing. It's a black people thing. It's unfortunate that I got to say it here again. It's a black people thing.
It's a black people thing, and that is why I mentioned earlier how the Indians behave, the Chinese and the Arabs. Now, but hold on. It is going to take someone. It is going to take someone that has the cojones, that has the balls, that says, I am going to turn this around and I'm going to lead my people. If you take St. Kitts and Nevis, they didn't reach where they reached because, they just left it and said, okay, we're black and we can't do it. Mia Mottley is a prime example of consistency as a black person, because you said it's a black thing, right? It's a black thing.
No.
Martin Luther King was also black. Nelson Mandela was also black. I am black. You are black. The reason why this program is where it is today, the reason why this program has remained for decades, is because you as a black man decided, listen.
Well, I'm a biracial man. And at the same time,
that's fine.
But I'm very consistent. I can't be pushed around.
Okay, so exactly. So
that's very important. So I'm a biracial man with black and white in my family, uncles and aunts that are blue eye and everything else. So
amen.
The issue is not that. The issue is it's a black people thing, and we got it. How do we get this problem solved? And it's a Caribbean black people thing.
It's a Caribbean black people thing. Rome wasn't built in a day. And if I'm standing here and I'm telling you, I am 100% convinced that the matter can change, is because it can be changed. You have to have that conviction and that willpower that you can make a difference.
But Mr. Chandra, if I didn't believe what you just said, you think I'll be here?
No. You would.
All these years, almost 50 years, doing what I'm doing, making the money, being kicked around, okay, and no respect. According to my good old friend, the comedian who died, no respect. I'm still here. Why? Because I love this other way I was born, and I love the people. I love everybody, basically, because some of my own people. Let me just go back a little bit quickly. When I used to do the show, when there was no social media, this was the show. We made politicians, we broke politicians on this show.
Yes.
Okay?
Banks as well, by the way.
Pardon?
Banks as well.
I don't know. But believe me, when we said something here, people tremble. Okay? And I never abused it. So what I'm saying is, and you've been on the show, Emilio, all of you, Simon is changing, Mr. Challenger. It's not the same island anymore.
It is not the same, and it is that melting pot like everywhere else. Wherever you have development, and we've grown, we employ the Caribbean. Yeah, but we employ people. The development has gotten out of control, but to be able to fix it.
No, it's out of control.
It is out of control. I don't disagree with the challenges that we have in infrastructure. I don't disagree with the challenges in education. I don't disagree that, we have got to take a grip on things. I don't disagree with that. My point is that at the end of the day, if I am going to have a Dutchman or an Indian or whoever it is come in here and in their efforts to support and assist, it's not always negative, right? I still have to tell you, what Middle Region is about, what Colby is about, before you could execute your work. Well,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Then I might as well do it myself and ask you to come in, and I guide and I discuss with you what it is I'm putting forth for my people.
No.
Not the other way around.
Now that you said that, I'm going to go back and say something to you, which I know you remember. You was working at a bank in St. Martin, and the bank was from Trinidad. And I came to the bank and asked them if they could advertise the show. I got a whole run around all the time. And then you suggest that I meet with you and the bank manager from Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I told her? I said to her, this is verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to wait on you to come from Trinidad to do a television show so the people in Samar can have information, then this show would have never exist. So I don't need you.
Mm-hmm. But I also recall the other side.
That was bold.
I recall the other side of that story where at the time the bank was being called all kind of names. You know, there were so many abbreviations for RBTT, which I don't.
Not Oral Gibbs.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was a general, after having ABN AMRO and then moving to a Trinidadian bank, there was this fear, this discomfort. And one of the things I said to management at the time, I said, you're not local enough.
Being local.
Being on a program
Only
such
local
as...
bank Winter Island. Not even Winter Island is local anymore, but
that is changing as well.
Yeah.
That's the closest. So at that point in time, and doing community work, sponsoring and all of that, and being on your program is what began to turn the image of the bank positively around. And this is why I say anybody can come here. Ultimately, to be able to survive, they have to have some level of interaction with the key people. They have to have a level of understanding of where we came from and where we are at this point, what brought us here. And this is why I stand firm. I strongly believe that we do not require for any nation to come here and take over our operations. What we require is to stand up, take our responsibility, right? And collaborate with guidance from each other, both our side and the international party, if you want to call it that, or partner within the kingdom, and walk hand in hand to do the things and the will of the people of St. Martin.
Okay, so just join us. I'm OG Oral Gibbs here with Mr. Jimmy Challenger, and speaking of everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. We come a long way, and everybody have their challenges. Mr. Challenger. Plain words there. But the thing is about St. Martin in the end, it's sad, but it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been saved 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But when your country, a small country, reached to this state, right, as it is right now, I just hope I'm so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is going right. And Calamera said it. He said, we all have to look at ourselves and see where we are, as people. I've been blessed and fortunate to be consistent, hard work, and have a good wife to support me, to make sure that I at least didn't have to go out there and beg nobody for employment. Okay, the last person I worked for was the government of St. Martin. I retired at age 39, 38, and I went in business for myself, and the rest is history. Many people on this island, don't want to make the sacrifice for business or what have you. So they go into work for someone else, or they take all the crap that's going out there. In the end, what you have is an island today that is run and controlled by outsiders. Yes, we have a few families who get elected to office. Even those same families that are there are manipulated and controlled by outsiders. St. Martin, it's gone. We talk about our island, what? We ain't got no island. Ain't your own. It's somebody else's own. They own the land, they own the business, they own everything else. Period. That's dangerous, by the way.
It is dangerous. It's also within your legal structure. The legal system is also has been that way from the onset, where Dutch judges, it has changed a bit now that we have more local lawyers. So it has improved. I have to basically agree, yes, St. Martin has changed, St. Martin has evolved, but like every other nation that brings employment, that has a level of prosperity it attracts everyone else in.
But the danger is, what I just described to you a while ago, that's the way the young guy in St. Peter's, in South Reward, Miller Region, they think. They don't see it no more as the island anymore. They don't see it no more. They don't have the opportunity.
Look, we can look at 100 different reasons, 1,000 different reasons why things are not working.
Exactly.
Right?
I agree.
Or we can look at the 100 and 1,000 opportunities that we have to turn things around.
Right.
Simply sitting back and saying, look, it's so bad, we can't do nothing, let somebody else do it for us. What we're basically saying is, we'll sit down on the side of the street and watch someone else to continue to enjoy.
You know, educated people doing that too. Even though people in government, that's what they're doing. What they're doing is they're so afraid of bringing in outsiders,
right?
Putting them in position of power.
So there you go. So there's your chaos. So there's your chaos.
Total confusion.
Right. There's your chaos because again, you're deciding. Listen, let me pull the towel. Let me don't deal with this. Let someone else come and do it. Okay.
The reason, Mr. Chair, I'm saying it. Let's hold it up. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that the boy in the street in Sucker Garden, Miller Region, is just like the government, and vice versa. The government is a reflection of the people.
Correct.
Okay? And what you're seeing happening in St. Martin today, you and I are not a reflection of that, fortunately. Whether you want to believe that or not, I'm telling you, you and I and others, Calmera, and a few of us are not a part of that. We need more like you and Calmera.
Correct. Now here's the thing. His perspective is, let the Dutch come in.
Both you have the same perspective, you know that, right?
No,
by the way, you know both you still have the same perspective?
Yeah.
Do you? No,
we have more in common. We have more in common than differences, and I understand that. Yeah. Again, I would prefer to, in an effort to turn things around, I would refrain from making those statements.
Which statement?
Of let the Dutch come in.
Well,
I am going to stand firm here on your program and tell you, if I were Prime Minister today, first and foremost is tackling your information and education. Knowledge is power. When we sit back and allow those young boys to be on their motorbike, driving back and forth, causing chaos, accidents, death, and do nothing about it, then arguably let someone else come and handle then your delinquency. Let someone else come and handle your banking. Let someone else come and do it. No.
That's what we're doing all the time.
As leader of a country, you need to stand firm and you need to tell yourself, where is it you're going to take our people? Where is it that you're going to? Because I refuse to believe, knowing what all I know and all the positions that I've held, that St. Martin is incapable of handling and managing its own affairs.
Look, St. Martin is capable. The problem is our people. And you remember I said to you earlier what the lady told me in Miami from Trinidad, who's an attorney in New York?
Yeah.
It's a Caribbean thing, it's a black people thing.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, right, whether it's a black thing or not, as a living being, as a human being, we aspire to be more. Okay? Simply letting it all go and
really aspire to be more.
We aspire to be more. Whether it's your personal goal to become a billionaire and don't have to depend on the state, or whether you are in government as a politician and you want to get re-elected, the point is, what is the common goal of that billionaire and that politician or that
perception? No, let's go culturally our people. Now, a guy from Jamaica was saying to me, he had some problem. He went to court and he looked around, he saw all the Europeans in court. He said, in Jamaica, that won't happen. I said to him, but Jamaica is an independent country. He said, you could be independent and it still won't happen. I said, why? He said, because you don't have your people. And the man was right. He was right.
Yes, but while he's right, the ANC movement of Nelson Mandela started with one person. The movement of Martin Luther King started with one person. The goal to go to the moon at the time when JFK was in office started with one statement from one president, right? If it's going to take only a Jimmy Challenger or only a Oral Gibbs to begin to put that catalyst in place of change, then it has to. You have to firmly believe in yourself that you can make that change, okay? You have to be able to take the blows that is going to come for the greater good of your people. You have to stand.
Mr. Challenger, who you think in St. Martin today have taken more blows for St. Martin?
At this point in time, I'm going to say something very arrogant and maybe a bit selfish to bring the point home. Okay? As a former board member of Telem, I insisted that certain checks and balances be put in place, that you have a operational audit, that you look at ways to improve your company.
Yeah.
I think they removed probably every limb of my body, basically saying, look, you're being extreme, you're being ridiculous, blah, 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 whatever the case was at that time. I stood my ground and I said, okay, if the ship, those that are steering the ship, because as a supervisory board member, you can only advise and supervise, and I did the honorable thing and said, please do not extend me for a second term, right? Because you're not seeing what I'm seeing. But I sacrificed myself. What happened 3 years later? Court cases. They found out that certain things were not done the way that it's supposed to be done, and the rest is history. But I stood my ground. Now things are being corrected. Today I sit on the supervisory board of the hospital. That project, as you know, it's public knowledge, it's been published, has been going on for the last 10 years. From the moment of inception of discussion to the bidding process to the commencement of construction. When I joined the board approximately 3 years ago, we were on the basement level, okay? Where we were discussing the base isolators, which basically helps you when there's earthquakes, that the building can kind of swing and sway with the earthquake. And I looked at that building and I said, you know, one term is approximately 3 years. I said, if in 3 years' time we don't reach the highest point, then I've failed as a contributor to that supervisory council. Why? You're a former banker, you have experience about financing, you know about construction, you've done mortgages for people, and this is a construction project. As complex as it may be, you have to know what your competencies are, and you have to fight for what you have to fight for. Am I liked by the contractor? Not necessarily. My fellow board members at times may feel, okay, maybe you are too rigid on something, but at the end of the day, we have reached the highest point of that hospital, because I understand deep down the importance of not just the role that I have to play, but the impact that it is going to have on all of us. You're here before me now. You're good. You're healthy. Tomorrow, at some point, it's from the cradle to the grave, as we say. And where we start at the hospital is more than likely where we end, and we pass, and we are buried. That hospital has a very crucial role to play in our development. And this is where I say it takes one person to stand firm and say, listen, we can do this. You lead by example. You take your blows. No great leader in the history of mankind has had it easy. None.
So, that hospital situation is unfortunate. The length of time, I understand they're asking for what's additional $20 million to complete it.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to divulge exactly the details of it. There's been quite some incorrect press releases on the way and the manner that the project has been going. The hospital, through its PR communication, has been doing corrective measures of information, disseminating information, and has been in collaboration with the government on its whole. As you know, it's not just about the Minister of Health, but if he's not in office, then his counterpart takes over. So what I would say in a nutshell is that whatever position one holds that is of power, you have a choice. You either exercise that power or someone takes it away from you.
So then the hospital is going to be completed on time, or they're going to require that $20 million to complete it?
What I can say at this point in time, in terms of requirements of the hospital, is that despite of every challenge that you can have in a construction, whether it's your home, whether it's a complexity of airport, you saw the airport also had its delays. Building a hospital or an airport is a lot more complex than a home. You have all kinds of infrastructure that has to be put in place
before the project starts. By the way, I've been developing properties for many years, and I understand the business pretty well.
Yes, there is a design. There is design stage.
But I think people screwed up in the beginning with that hospital. Let's be real. People screwed up with it, and they didn't screw up with it and play politics with it. It would have been finished by now. So that's a fact. And anyone that want to dispute that, I welcome them here on the show. Too much politics was played with that hospital. So that's why we're, 10 years later, and now reached the roof, and it still isn't finished. And believe me, I'm a big advocate and supporter for that. I think the St. Martin Medical Center is doing a great job. I was at the opening of the St. Martin Medical Center when it was open. The late Clawati, the late Mr. Vic Henriquez, all the different people were there. So I understand and I support it. And I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Challenger. Today, I'm proud of that St. Martin Medical Center. I've been there to visit people, and it's clean, it's well managed, okay? They take good care of the patients. I'm proud of the St. Martin Medical Center. And I hope that that type of care for patients will continue when that building is finished. So that's not the issue here is, Mr. Challenger, is the people were shortchanged, and now people are reading 20 million, and they don't know who to believe.
Again, I'm not disputing the fact that there have been challenges over time. I'm not disputing that. What I'm bringing across to you is that at the end of the day, you cannot throw in the towel. You cannot give up on the right steps that need to be taken, or corrective measures that have to be taken to accomplish what's best for your country. The hospital is where it is today due to the dedication of the 7 supervisory board members, the management, which has changed over time. The current management has done their work, and there've been discussions with the contractor to improve matters so that we can continue forward.
I think the Prime Minister too today, the current Prime Minister, played quite a role.
Every stakeholder that had to do and play a role did their role. But ultimately, again, bringing it full circle, it took those 7 appointed St. Martiners, right, to advise and supervise. It took a local management team to be side by side with a foreign entity, foreign contractor, to say, listen, no, we're not dropping the ball here. This has to be done. It's the same thing when you take it to a higher level of governance, that you cannot. And again, I specifically, I thank you for allowing me to be on this program and to specifically hammer down on the fact that I don't care who comes here, whether it's the Dutch who's already here, whether it's the Americans or whoever it is, they cannot, no Dutchman can survive on this island without some level of input or influence from the knowledge of our own local people. Because if you notice, anybody that comes here and settles here, the first couple of months, they're very calm, they're very quiet, they're learning, they're moving forward. And then they develop and they grow. But
you know what's dangerous? You know what's dangerous? When you come from somewhere else and you become a St. Martin. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here. When you come from somewhere else, whether it's Holland, the States, what have you, and you become
You have a stake. You have a stake in the country.
Not a minute away, and you become a real St. Martin. I mean, everything, not just the money alone.
When you switch over culturally, and then they begin to also criticize their own people where they came from. They begin to say, well, you know, this is not how we do it here. You see Dutch people that tell
Dutch
you,
people like that,
yeah, they will tell you, listen, I love St. Martin. I don't want nothing to do with Holland. Here is more relaxed, more this, more that.
But you know why, right? You know why? They're making money. They're making money.
Yeah, but it's all economics at the end of the day. I think we need to, as a people, we need to reflect on our on things on the whole, and we need to feel proud about persons who are holding positions that look like us, right? We are sometimes too quick to say, okay, a white man stepped in the room, or a Chinese or Indian stepped in the room, and that's the word is gospel, you know. Even in the church, you see, we have the pastors in the Catholic Church are Filipinos, right? And the word is gospel. However, the cojones has to come from somewhere. I'm willing to do it if appointed tomorrow morning, where you have to stand and say, look, I want to see a greater involvement of black people.
Look, so John, some other beautiful island, beautiful people, good people, ultimately very, very good people, kind people, who have been taken advantage of over the years by their own people in political power and outsiders who saw the opportunity to do it, right? So I'm optimistic in that regard. As a St. Martin Ado, I'm realistic and know where we are. And as the Prime Minister said, we don't have the numbers anymore. And as my good friend Donald Trump has said, if we don't hold the card and we don't have the number, you know what happens. So for St. Martin, the future, for St. Martin people, listen carefully, for St. Martin future people, the future seems to be very bleak. And I pray to God that I'm wrong. I really hope that.
We are part of an international world. People have intermarried, right? The St. Martiner that we are now has evolved and has changed. And it's going to continue to evolve. It brings me back again. That contract, whether it's a temporary contract, like you say, because the Dutch can take the passport back or whatever have you, at the end of the day, you have a civil contract as a citizen with that nation. You are now labeled as such or defined as such as a St. Martiner. And we need to collectively, whether you have a ethnic background of Indian or whether it's Chinese, whatever have you, or black, we need to redefine and say, this is where we're going. You have a social contract with this nation. I am your prime minister. This is where we're going with it. This is how we're going to educate our people.
Independent though, right?
Independence is the ultimate goal in the end. But in between of all of that, you have to build that pride. You have to build that willingness of wanting to be.
Do you think we have it?
There is pride in certain things. We have pride in our, as simple as our carnival, for example. Tell somebody, try to explain carnival to somebody or behave as if carnival ain't important. You will be slaughtered. You understand what I'm saying? So it starts there. It starts with the things that we have common ground on. Curacao just put together a football team, right? Prior to that, they had the baseball, Mr. Jones, and these international players have contributed to their country. They have built stadiums to promote the sports. Where are we with St. Martin today? My 3 daughters, they're all in swimming. 2 of them have left the country on multiple occasions, along with other swimming students, to represent St. Martin in Aruba, in Curacao, in, I believe, Martinique, and so forth, right? So, and you see where the government is meeting the students when they arrive on the airport. Don't you think that that's the way Curacao started 20 years ago? So we are not necessary. It's not all doom and gloom when it comes to St. Martin. You need to look at every positive aspect and build on that aspect, right? So that you can collectively at some point say, look, this is the direction, this is the independence, this is the planning, this is where I'm going to lead. All those persons who have a social contract, who are citizens of this nation.
All right. So then you would like to see a St. Martin independent country in the Caribbean with its own passport?
I have no issues with that. I have no qualms with it.
Time frame, you think?
You know, I would say within 30 years it's possible. And while that may sound very far away, there are many things that, again, from an education standpoint of view, from a goal setting, both on your infrastructure, where you want to go, ensuring that the right economic environment is there. There are many people starting businesses today. You see when you go on Front Street, when you have those small tents and things that go on, there's so many business opportunities, but the infrastructure within government is not in place as yet. The tax reforms that need to happen to encourage that entrepreneurship at that lower level is not in place as yet.
Yeah, I know, Mr. John, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to control myself because, you know, the difference between you and I and other people is the challenges that we've had to go through. And for me, you know, the government did everything to destroy me. And when your own government tried to destroy their own citizen, that's not good. That happened to me. So I hear you, but then I start to get these memories of the past. I don't want to go back there. Now I'm looking forward. And that's why I said to you earlier, unfortunately, I can understand what Mr. Emilio Calmera said. I also said to you during this interview that both of you, have a lot in common. And even Mr. Calmera don't believe what he was saying at the time, but he said it out of frustration and no other alternative. And I said, I agree with him. And everybody know I'm an independista. Okay? You see, so we got to be very careful how things go.
While I agree and I understand his level of frustration, and I could give you multiple examples where I have been in positions of your very own trying to crush you, right down from writing a simple mortgage to help a local, and you get, you know, someone in senior level who's also a local and comes in the room and said, "No, I don't help that person because they're doing X, Y, Z, or they ain't doing this correct," right? Now, we are the cause of our own demise because in the process, why don't you say, listen, I understand you're trying to help this person. Be careful with ABC. Bring the client in. Let's have a discussion and see how we can help them. One helps one. Okay? We have to instill that back, and it starts from the top. Right? It starts from the top. Someone with cojones, and like I say, or with a challenging name like mine, Challenger, with an opportunity to lead, and has the balls to say, listen, this is not going right. This is not going right. These are the things that we need to change, and it starts from education and information.
Look, Mr. Challenger, I say we have a lot of things to work on as a people. We're all individuals, and so we all have our separate aspirations. We need one common goal. We need to work together in one.
Correct.
And that's why I think that you and Mr. Calmera represent the good that we have in St. Martin. And I think a lot of people, when I look at the numbers just from the reel alone and Facebook, over 15,000 people, I see where the majority of people agree with Mr. Calmera. I know you notice that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I understand it because, again, there's frustration. So I understand all of that. but I don't want to, and I will not entertain. Because the majority feels that way. Bonaire today, being under the Dutch as a municipality, when you go down the streets of Bonaire, it has become a typical summer day in Groningen. Okay, majority of the people being Caucasian, if you wanna call it that. The positions have all gone. So and I don't wanna be rude about it, but it almost looks like ethnic cleansing in a sense, right? Stacia, who's one of the strongest set of people within the Dutch Caribbean that tend to be, they fight everything.
They're being punished too.
Right? You're being punished for that. Now, you may not agree with everything that Clyde Van Putten says or does. There's a lot of things that, you don't necessarily agree with him, right? But he stands for his country and his self-determination. Whether he's the last of the Mohicans, that we will not know, right? And the thing is, St. Martin should, and is extremely capable of standing on its own within the realm of making its decisions and collaborating with the powers that may internationally. I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to stand by that. And history will then judge me on my thought process.
Well, the late Dr. Clawadi made this declaration for political independence for this island on this show.
Yeah. I think it was 1986, around there.
Yeah. So, we go back a long way. And as I say, I respect you and Mr. Calmera, both of you. I hope this discussion will continue in a very civil way. And I appreciate you for your honesty and your point of view. So you want to add anything in closing?
No, I think in the end, for me, first and foremost, I thank the Creator for giving me the opportunity and the wisdom to speak out.
Yeah.
And secondly, I commend you on your consistency again with your program and allowing persons like Calmera and myself to have a platform of discussion and allowing the people to listen and weigh in on that. And finally, St. Martin is one of the best, if not the best places to be. They don't call us the friendly island for nothing. We have not developed and become who we are today in terms of development simply because we wanted that. We also have to look at the geographical location that we're at, the infrastructure that is there, as challenging as it is. Those things were a catalyst to allow others to come. And ultimately, I do believe that we can turn things around. Right down to the gut of it, and I look forward to continue to contribute towards the development of St. Martin.
Well, I appreciate it, and I hope, and I wish we had more like you and Calmera, people that I can call on, young professionals I can call on, because too often, people come back and they're holding on to the knowledge, they're afraid to express themselves, right? And you two gentlemen are just the opposite of that. That will make it so great. All right, so again, I want to thank you and wish you much success. All right?
Thank you, sir.
That's Mr. Jimmy Challenger on Speaking of Everything on YouTube, Facebook, and on Hot 99.9 FM radio. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.